There are people who don't need chains to control you. They use your guilt. They make you feel selfish for saying no, disloyal for protecting your peace, and ungrateful for making decisions they don't approve of. And because they are family, you may spend years confusing emotional control with love. But blood creates a relationship. It does not automatically create trust. One of the most dangerous people in your life can be the family member who has learned exactly how to make you feel guilty. They know your weaknesses because they have known you for years. They know which words make you question yourself. They know what responsibilities you take seriously. They know how much you care about the family. And sometimes, instead of respecting that compassion, they use it as leverage. You say, "I can't do this right now." And suddenly you hear, "After everything I've done for you?" You make a decision for yourself, and they respond, "You've changed." You establish a boundary, and they call you selfish. You choose your own path, and they make you feel as though your independence is a betrayal. Pay attention to the pattern. Guilt is not always proof that you have done something wrong. Sometimes guilt is simply the emotional reaction that appears when you finally stop doing what someone else expects from you. This distinction can change your life. A healthy family member may disagree with your decision. They may feel disappointed. They may even tell you that they wish you had chosen differently, but they can still respect your right to make your own decision. Manipulation is different. Manipulation attempts to make you surrender your decision by attacking your emotions. And once you recognize this, you stop defending yourself endlessly. You don't need to write a 10-minute explanation every time you say no. You don't need to prove that you're a good person before protecting your time. You don't need to sacrifice your peace simply because someone is uncomfortable with your boundary. Sometimes the strongest response is calm and simple. "I understand that you're disappointed, but my decision remains the same. No anger, no attempt to punish them. Just clarity. Remember, having boundaries does not mean you don't love your family. In fact, healthy boundaries can protect relationships from resentment. When you constantly say yes while secretly feeling angry, eventually that anger comes out in ways that damage everyone. You teach people how to interact with you through what you repeatedly tolerate. If someone learns that guilt always works, they will keep using guilt. If they discover that emotional pressure makes you surrender, pressure becomes their strategy. But when you calmly refuse to participate, the pattern begins to lose its power. This does not mean assuming every emotional expression is manipulation. People can genuinely feel hurt, disappointed, or misunderstood. The important question is whether they respect your autonomy after expressing those feelings. Watch what happens after you say no. Do they eventually accept it? Or do they escalate the guilt until you give in? That is where the difference becomes visible. You don't need to become cold. You don't need to stop caring. You simply need to stop confusing someone else's disappointment with your obligation. Your compassion is valuable. But compassion without boundaries can become self-abandonment. Love your family where you can, but never let guilt become the price you pay for protecting your own peace. There is another kind of family member you must learn to recognize: the person who treats your vulnerability as information to be stored rather than something to be protected. You tell them about a fear, a mistake, a relationship problem, a financial struggle, or something you are deeply ashamed of, believing that because they are family, your words are safe. Then, months or years later, those same private details suddenly appear during an argument. That moment teaches you something important. Not everyone who listens to you is worthy of everything you reveal. Family can create a powerful illusion of automatic trust. We assume that shared history means emotional safety, but trust is not created by blood alone. It is created through consistent behavior. A trustworthy person doesn't take your vulnerable moments and turn them into weapons. They don't embarrass you in front of others with information you shared privately. They don't bring up your deepest insecurities whenever they want to win an argument. They don't tell your private stories simply because they know they can get a reaction. If someone repeatedly does these things, pay attention. You don't need to confront them with hatred. You don't need to expose their behavior publicly. You don't even need to announce that you no longer trust them. You can simply become more selective. There is a difference between being emotionally open and being emotionally careless. You can love someone and still decide that certain parts of your life are no longer available for discussion. You can maintain a relationship while keeping certain struggles private. You can have a conversation without giving someone access to every thought, plan, fear, or weakness inside you. This isn't secrecy for the sake of manipulation. It is discernment. Think about what happens when you tell someone something personal. Do they protect it? Do they respond with compassion? Do they listen without turning the conversation into gossip? Do they remember your vulnerability when they disagree with you and choose not to weaponize it? Those behaviors reveal character. And don't make the mistake of believing that because someone apologizes once, the entire pattern has disappeared. People make mistakes. A trustworthy person can make a mistake and genuinely repair the damage. They acknowledge what they did. They take responsibility. They change their behavior. The problem is repetition. If someone repeatedly turns your vulnerability into ammunition, the lesson is not that you need to become emotionally numb. The lesson is that you need better boundaries around access. Not everyone needs to know everything about you. Some people can know your everyday life. A smaller circle can know your dreams. An even smaller circle can know your deepest fears. That isn't paranoia. That's discernment. Your vulnerability should be given gradually to people who demonstrate that they can carry it responsibly. And remember something important. Protecting your private life does not make you dishonest. You are not obligated to reveal every detail simply because someone asks. Sometimes, "I'd rather keep that private," is a complete answer. The strongest boundaries are often quiet. You don't announce them. You simply stop handing sensitive information to people who have repeatedly demonstrated that they cannot protect it. Because once you understand the difference between familiarity and trust, you stop assuming that everyone close to you deserves unrestricted access to your inner world. Be compassionate with people, but be selective with your vulnerability. Trust should be earned by behavior, not assumed because of family ties. Another family dynamic you should learn to recognize is quiet competition. It rarely announces itself. There may be no obvious argument, no direct declaration of jealousy. Instead, it appears through subtle comments, comparisons, dismissive reactions, or a strange need to turn your success into something smaller. You share good news, and instead of celebrating, they immediately tell you about someone who has done more. You achieve something, and they remind you of what you still haven't accomplished. You make progress, and they find a flaw. Over time, these small reactions can affect how you see yourself. The danger isn't simply that someone feels jealous. People experience jealousy sometimes. The real issue is when jealousy repeatedly becomes behavior designed to diminish you. You don't need to hide your achievements to protect someone else's insecurity. But you also don't need to turn your life into a competition. Stay humble. Stay focused. Share your victories with people who genuinely celebrate them, and stop seeking validation from those who consistently minimize your progress. Most importantly, don't respond by becoming competitive yourself. You don't need to prove that you're better. You don't need to make them jealous in return. You don't need to explain every accomplishment. Let your results speak. And observe the pattern. A family member who occasionally makes an insensitive comment may simply be imperfect. A person who consistently tries to undermine your confidence is showing you something about how they relate to your success. You can love them, while becoming more selective about what you share. Your growth doesn't require their permission. Don't shrink your light to make someone else comfortable. Simply stop measuring your worth through their reaction to it. There is a moment when you have to stop explaining a boundary and start observing what happens when you enforce it. Anyone can say they respect you, but behavior reveals the truth. A family member may tell you they understand your limits, yet continue calling at inappropriate hours, demanding personal information, interfering in your decisions, or ignoring your repeated requests for space. One violation may be a mistake. A repeated pattern is different. Healthy boundaries are not punishments. They are limits that protect your time, privacy, emotional energy, and peace. You can say, "I don't want to discuss that," without feeling guilty. You can decline a request without writing an entire explanation. You can leave a conversation when it becomes disrespectful. And when someone becomes angry simply because you established a reasonable boundary, pay attention. Their anger doesn't automatically mean you are wrong. Sometimes people become uncomfortable because they were benefiting from your lack of boundaries. But don't turn this into suspicion of everyone around you. Give people an opportunity to understand and adjust. The important question is whether they eventually respect your limits. If they repeatedly refuse, you have information. You may not need to cut them out completely. Sometimes the healthier response is simply less access, fewer personal details, shorter conversations, clearer limits, or more emotional distance. You can love someone without giving them unlimited access to you. A boundary is not rejection. It is a clear decision about what you will protect and what behavior you will no longer participate in. The greatest mistake you can make when dealing with difficult family members is judging an entire relationship by one painful moment. One argument, one careless comment, or one mistake does not automatically prove that someone is dangerous or untrustworthy. Human beings are imperfect. Even people who genuinely love you can sometimes disappoint you, misunderstand you, or behave badly. What matters is the pattern. Watch what happens repeatedly. Does this person apologize when they hurt you? Do they take responsibility without immediately blaming you? Do they respect your privacy after you explain that something is personal? When you establish a boundary, do they eventually adjust? When they make a mistake, do you see genuine change or simply another promise followed by the same behavior? Patterns reveal character more clearly than words. This is especially important because emotional pain can distort judgment. When you're angry, you may want to label someone completely bad. When you're hurt, you may want to cut everyone off. But emotional decisions made at the peak of anger can create another kind of regret. Pause before you decide. Observe. Give yourself enough distance to separate facts from assumptions. Someone being different from you does not automatically make them toxic. Someone disagreeing with you does not automatically mean they are against you. Someone having a difficult personality does not automatically mean they are incapable of love. But repeated manipulation, betrayal, humiliation, disrespect, and boundary violations should never be dismissed simply because the person is family. Look for consistency. A trustworthy person doesn't have to be perfect. They have to be accountable. They may make mistakes, but they learn. They may become defensive at first, but eventually reflect. They may disappoint you, but they don't repeatedly use your vulnerability against you. Their behavior over time creates a sense of safety rather than constant anxiety. And if someone's presence consistently leaves you emotionally exhausted, fearful, or confused, don't ignore that information either. You don't have to diagnose them. You don't need a label. You only need to recognize what their behavior is doing to your life and decide what level of access is healthy for you. Trust should be gradual. Let people earn deeper access through consistency rather than giving unlimited trust simply because of familiarity, because family history tells you where someone came from. Their repeated behavior tells you who they are choosing to be. The final lesson is perhaps the most important. Protecting yourself does not require becoming bitter. Once you recognize manipulation, broken trust, competition, or repeated boundary violations within a family, it can be tempting to close your heart completely. You may start thinking, if I can't trust them, I can't trust anyone. But that is another trap. The goal is not to become suspicious of everyone. The goal is to become discerning. You can love someone without giving them unlimited access to your life. You can forgive someone without returning to the same level of trust. You can care about a family member while deciding that certain conversations, secrets, or personal decisions are no longer theirs to manage. Forgiveness and trust are not the same thing. Forgiveness can release you from carrying resentment. Trust must be rebuilt through consistent behavior. That distinction protects your peace. You also don't need to announce every boundary dramatically. Sometimes the strongest boundary is simply changing your behavior. You share less. You explain less. You stop participating in arguments that always end in emotional exhaustion. You limit conversations that repeatedly become disrespectful. You choose when to engage and when to walk away. This is not punishment. It is self-protection. And remember that emotional distance does not always mean physical distance. Sometimes you can maintain a relationship while creating healthier limits around it. You can meet for family occasions, communicate respectfully, and still keep certain parts of your personal life private. The objective is not revenge. It is peace. Don't waste your energy trying to make someone understand your boundaries if they have repeatedly shown that they don't want to understand them. You cannot control another person's character. You can only control how much access you give them, and don't allow someone else's behavior to turn you into someone you don't recognize. Don't become cruel because someone was cruel to you. Don't become manipulative because someone manipulated you. Don't spend your life trying to expose, punish, or defeat difficult people. Protect yourself and keep moving forward. Your peace is not something you need permission to protect. Your family may share your history, your memories, and your bloodline, but your emotional life still belongs to you. You decide who receives your deepest trust, who receives limited access, and who must earn their way back after breaking it. The strongest boundary is not hatred. It is clarity. You can say, I love you, but I will no longer allow this behavior into my life. And then you can live according to that decision. You don't have to stop loving people to protect yourself. You simply have to stop giving unlimited access to those who repeatedly misuse your trust.